Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's NASC Preferred Supplier webinar, Science-Based Formulations with Premium Natural Astaxanthin for Pets and Their Parents. I'm Bill Parker with NASC, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I have just a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded for you and for you to refer back to, and for others who could not join it today. It'll be posted on the NASC website at www.nasc.cc/webinars. Next, we will be addressing your questions at the end of today's presentation. However, you're welcome to type them in at any time using the Zoom Q&A tool. You may also communicate directly with me via the Zoom chat tool. And finally, if you have any technical difficulties, your best bet is to log out of the webinar, close all your browsers, reopen a new browser, and log back into the webinar using the same link that you logged into initially. And with that, it will be my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Karen Heck. Karen is the Scientific Affairs Manager at AstaReal Incorporated, producer and purveyor of the most studied brand of natural astaxanthin from algae. Dr. Heck studied algal molecular biology as a postdoctoral associate at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. She earned her PhD in biological sciences at the University of Pittsburgh and her BSc in biochemistry from the University of Toronto. Dr. Heck has spoken at conferences, on radio shows, and podcasts about natural astaxanthin as an ingredient for companion animals and human health. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Karen. Take it away.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill, for that introduction. And thank you all for joining today. For those of you joining us from the United States, coming in on the heels of a long weekend, what a way to get started. Kick back and enjoy this NASC Preferred Supplier Educational Webinar Series. I thank you for your time today. We're here to talk about science-based formulation with natural astaxanthin for pets and their parents. Of course, science-based because we're going to be going over some studies that were done on astaxanthin in dogs, as well as some rodent models, and it's healthy for pets and their parents. We will touch on a couple of human studies here as well, just as an example, to show you and help you understand the mechanisms in dogs and how it can help to support aging dogs. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you natural astaxanthin. It is a red pigment found in salmon, wild salmon especially, and it has powerful antioxidant properties, and it serves as an essential nutrient for growing salmon. It binds directly to salmon muscle, giving salmon their characteristic red color because astaxanthin itself is red. Natural astaxanthin supports muscle function, which salmon need during their long migration journeys in spawning season. What you're seeing here is some of the facts of salmon's migration journey, specifically sockeye salmon, who travel 900 miles from Astoria, Oregon to south central Idaho's Snake River to spawn. They experience a 7,000-foot elevation and navigate 12-foot jumps along the way. The endurance required for this journey is fueled by fat the salmon have stored, which gets converted to energy by mitochondria in their muscles. So several studies have shown that natural astaxanthin is beneficial for dogs, just as it is for salmon. The studies ranged in dose from 0.1 to 2.2 milligrams per kilogram body weight of natural astaxanthin. Now, in this presentation, we will review some of the studies that showed benefits of natural astaxanthin for mitochondrial function, mobility, cardiovascular health, cognitive function, and eye health. Now, even at the lowest dose in the range shown at the top of this slide of 0.1 mg per kilogram body weight used in these studies, there is a diet gap, which means dogs need to supplement with natural astaxanthin to experience its benefits. To obtain the minimum dose of 0.1 mg per kilogram natural astaxanthin, a small dog would need to consume 0.3 mg per day natural astaxanthin, which is equivalent to 1 fillet of wild king salmon daily. A medium dog would need 1 mg per day natural astaxanthin, equivalent to 2 wild king salmon fillets daily, and a large dog would need 3 mg per day, equivalent to 6 wild king salmon fillets daily. I mean, given that salmon is a rare protein source in the commercial canine diet, it's clear that diet alone is simply not enough, and supplementation is needed to address the diet gap in natural astaxanthin if we're to leverage these clinically studied benefits. Now, what is so special about astaxanthin? Of course, we have lots of antioxidants to choose from, and astaxanthin has several really unique characteristics that stand out that I'd like to discuss with you today. So the first comes from a head-to-head analysis of natural astaxanthin's antioxidant capacities. They looked at astaxanthin together with several other antioxidants in vitro and measured their ability or capacity for quenching singlet oxygen. And what was found was that astaxanthin had 6,000 times the antioxidant capacity of vitamin C, 800 times that of CoQ10, 100 times that of vitamin E, and even 3 to 5 times the antioxidant capacity of its cousin carotenoids like lutein and beta carotene. So aside from this very powerful antioxidant capacity and capacity to neutralize free radicals, the most popular antioxidant in supplements today is vitamin C. And vitamin C is a water-soluble antioxidant. So one unique feature of astaxanthin then is that it is a fat-soluble antioxidant that is able to access cell membranes that vitamin C cannot access. So you can see in this picture, vitamin C is in purple outside the membrane, and astaxanthin is shown in red inside the membrane. Not only can it access membranes, but it has this very unique structure with these, slightly water-loving electronegative oxygens on the ends that match the slightly water-loving head groups of the lipids forming the lipid bilayer of the membrane. So it matches the membrane architecture and is able to fit coaxially. It's also long enough to span the full thickness of this membrane bilayer. So it's giving you better antioxidant coverage across the entire length of the membrane. Whereas something like vitamin E, which can access membranes, is too short to span the full thickness, and something like beta carotene, which is very hydrophobic or fat-loving, tends to kind of just wedge itself in the middle of this membrane where the fat-loving part is. And in vitro models, it actually disrupted the in vitro membrane model structure a little bit, whereas astaxanthin did not. So it has this unique architecture, fits membranes very well, and has very powerful antioxidant capacity. Now, what we also know is that although astaxanthin is found in all membranes in the cell, in a dog and cat study, what was found is that as much as 50% of all membrane-bound astaxanthin is specifically found in mitochondrial membranes. And I just want to remind you that mitochondria are those special organelles in our cells that are responsible for energy production in the form of ATP. Now, the thing about mitochondria is that in addition to producing ATP, they also produce a byproduct called free radicals. And if these free radicals are allowed to accumulate, they can cause oxidative damage, as is shown in the muscle tissue on the right. Here, oxidative damage is indicated by the brown staining in this muscle tissue from mice. On the left, sedentary mice are not producing very many free radical byproducts, while the middle panel showing exercising mice, they have increased both ATP production and free radical production, leading to more brown staining indicative of oxidative damage to the heart muscle tissue and the skeletal muscle tissue from the leg. The exercising mice that supplemented with natural astaxanthin for 3 weeks experienced significantly less oxidative damage to their muscle tissue because natural astaxanthin was able to neutralize free radicals and that were produced during exercise. By neutralizing free radicals produced by mitochondria, natural astaxanthin is able to protect muscle tissue and mitochondria. This study showed that natural astaxanthin supplementation helped support mitochondrial function in both young and geriatric beagles after 16 weeks of supplementation. Mitochondrial ATP production increased by as much as 14%, and a mitochondrial enzyme involved in ATP production increased in the geriatric group by 570% compared to baseline. This study showed that natural astaxanthin can promote mitochondrial health and function in aging dogs. Now, mitochondrial function does tend to decline with age, and geriatric animals account for half of the pet population in the United States, according to this 2022 study by Fry et al. So consumers are looking for effective ways to help their aging dogs, and by addressing mitochondrial health, it's possible to support all metabolically active tissues. Now, this is an important figure that I hope will tie together all the following sections. In the slides that follow, we will be looking at studies in a diverse set of health platforms. Before we do that, I'd like to remind you that these health platforms are not lonely islands in the ocean of our bodies. They are all interconnected, and by addressing cellular health, mitochondrial function, and oxidative stress, we can make an impact on the whole body. So an important goal in canine geriatric health is to maintain mobility. Mobility and exercise promote cardiovascular health, and exercise has been shown to promote neurogenesis in the brain, even in adult animals. So healthy blood flow helps to bring oxygen and nutrients to metabolically active tissues, including muscles, brain, and eyes. This is especially important in aging dogs where blood flow becomes less efficient. The brain and eyes are physically connected, and dysfunction in one has been correlated with increased risk of dysfunction in the other. Now, a healthy cognitive function improves quality of life, mood, and activity level. And finally, vision helps support mobility as dogs age, helping them to stay active longer. Now, as we move through each of these health platforms in the presentation section by section, remember how each one impacts the other, and that these arrows, often are interconnected, sometimes going both ways as well. In this section, we will look at astaxanthin as a tool for maintaining mobility later in life. So progressive loss in muscle mass with aging is fairly well characterized in humans. It's called sarcopenia. And humans actually experience 1% annual decline in muscle mass after the age of 30. This is caused by cell aging or senescence and mitochondrial dysfunction, characterized by an increase of oxidative stress, an increase in free radical accumulation, and increased damage to mitochondrial DNA. This also means reduced ATP production, less efficient energy utilization, and reduced mitochondrial biogenesis. The consequence of all this is shown in an MRI cross-section of the human thigh on the right. Compared to the 25-year-old muscle, 65-year-old muscle on the right has lost significant mass and has been infiltrated by fat, which reduced muscle quality and strength. This slide shows something similar in dogs. It's a similar phenomenon. It's been observed in aging dogs, and it's shown here as a CT scan of the back muscles along the spine of a 10-year-old golden retriever on the right. The group of 10-year-old golden retrievers showed significant loss in muscle mass compared to their younger 4-year-old counterparts, an example shown on the right. This was shown by measuring radiodensity of CT scanned muscles and by assigning a muscle condition score to each dog on a scale of 0 to 3. The study concluded that aging dogs do experience mild to moderate muscle loss. So could natural astaxanthin that supports muscles in salmon and mice be used to address sarcopenia in aging dogs? That's the question. Okay, so we'll look at a couple studies. This one in particular in humans, which looked at how astaxanthin together with tocotrienols and zinc help to support muscles in aging individuals. Now, there are no published studies looking at the effect of astaxanthin in aging dog muscles specifically, but there is this study showing its effects in humans. So in this case, functional strength and endurance training does help humans maintain muscle mass with age. However, aging individuals become less responsive to the effects of training. So it's thought that this is caused in part because aging muscles are exposed to a more oxidative environment. As our endogenous antioxidant capacity becomes less efficient with age and we start to accumulate free radicals. This human clinical study tested the hypothesis that astaxanthin together with exercise would improve muscle strength and quality better than exercise alone. So participants here were aged 65 to 85 years old, and they supplemented with natural astaxanthin, a form of vitamin E called tocotrienols, and zinc for 1 month before starting a 3-month exercise regimen on an inclined treadmill. The strength of the leg muscle, the tibialis anterior shown here, was then tested after exercise and supplementation for that period of time. The study found a significant 3% increase in muscle cross-sectional area, which is indicative of muscle mass. It also found a 14% increase in muscle strength and a 12% increase in specific force, indicative of muscle quality in the astaxanthin plus exercise group. No significant improvements in these measures were found in the group undergoing exercise alone. This study suggested that natural astaxanthin, together with vitamin E and zinc, helped promote muscle health in aging individuals when combined with exercise. So another interesting finding here is that as aging dogs, become more sedentary, muscles can atrophy with disuse. So this study in mice examined whether astaxanthin could influence muscle atrophy resulting from disuse when the mouse's leg was immobilized. And the mouse's leg was immobilized using a method developed by NASA to simulate weightlessness conditions in spaceflight. So normally when the muscle is not being used, capillaries feeding the muscle begin to regress and the muscle atrophies. So you see in the graph on the right that hind limb unloaded mice, HU in dark blue, had significantly thinner capillaries, which was measured as luminal diameter, compared to both the control and astaxanthin mice who were had their limbs free use of their hind limbs. The hind limb unloaded mice that were given astaxanthin in pink still had significantly reduced capillary diameter compared to the mobile mice, but their condition was significantly improved compared to the immobilized mice that were not given astaxanthin. This suggests that astaxanthin may help to support blood flow to muscles even under conditions of muscle disuse. So in summary, we saw that astaxanthin supported mitochondrial function in dogs, reduced oxidative damage to muscle tissue in exercising mice, improved the effects of exercise in older humans, and supported blood flow in mice, even in immobilized mice that would normally lose or regress capillaries. So this has potential implications for mobility in aging dogs. Now let's move on to the next section. And remember that this is linked to mobility, since exercise and mobility does help promote cardiovascular health with age. And also blood flow helps to support muscle function and activity. So in the previous study that we looked at, we saw that astaxanthin helped to support muscle capillaries in immobilized mice. In fact, numerous studies have shown that astaxanthin helps support blood flow, blood vessel flexibility, and it promoted, when I say blood flow, I mean it promoted both peripheral and capillary blood flow in both humans and animals. They studied both. There are over 70 human clinical studies in AstaReal astaxanthin alone and 150 studies overall. more than 150 actually. This study is done in hypertensive rats, and it showed that astaxanthin supplementation helped significantly lower blood pressure over the course of 7 weeks compared to an olive oil control group. To understand why this might be the case, another study looked at the coronary artery in hypertensive rats in response to astaxanthin supplementation. The study found increased luminal diameter in the coronary artery, which gives more room for blood to flow. The study also examined the layers of elastin shown on the right. These elastin fibers along the artery help make the blood vessel flexible or compliant, so it can adjust to increased volumes of blood flow. In the hypertensive control rats, the elastin layers, shown here on the left, appear collapsed and disorganized, while the astaxanthin group on the right had more structured and well-defined elastin layers, indicative of a healthier artery. Lower blood pressure and improved blood vessel compliance helps improve blood flow and reduce the risk of blood vessel injury resulting from prolonged exposure to high blood pressure. Places where blood vessels are injured are sites where oxidized LDL or bad cholesterol can accumulate and eventually lead to the formation of atherosclerotic plaque. LDL by itself is not incorporated into plaque, but once it becomes oxidized, then it can be taken up by cells in blood vessel walls where it accumulates into fatty streaks and eventually forms plaque. So in this study, they decided to look at the effect of astaxanthin on LDL oxidation. Since astaxanthin has antioxidant activity, we might expect or hypothesize that astaxanthin should, increase the lag time or slow oxidation of LDL. So this study was done in human participants who supplemented with natural astaxanthin for 2 weeks, and then blood was drawn to see how quickly LDL would oxidize ex vivo or outside the body. Human participants who supplemented for 2 weeks actually did see that the LDL oxidized more slowly in the participants compared to baseline after supplementation, whereas no significant slowing of LDL oxidation was observed in the control group who was not supplementing. So supporting blood vessel health and providing antioxidant support should translate to an improvement in markers indicative of cardiovascular health. This study in beagles looked at the effect of natural astaxanthin on blood lipids and markers of oxidative stress, as well as a marker of systemic inflammation after 6 weeks of supplementation. The study found that plasma triglycerides decreased by 37% in the astaxanthin group compared to baseline. Meanwhile, melanodialdehyde, or MDA for short, is an indicator of oxidative stress, and it decreased 40% in the astaxanthin group compared to baseline, and 40% at the 6-week mark compared to the control group. Lactate dehydrogenase is an indicator of systemic inflammation. It decreased by 36% in the astaxanthin group compared to baseline, and by 50% at 6 weeks compared to the control group. These studies all suggest that natural astaxanthin promoted cardiovascular health, which is an important goal for aging dogs. Next, we'll look at emerging studies on astaxanthin for brain health. Now, about a decade ago, it was thought that new neurons couldn't form in adulthood. So like the old saying, people thought, you couldn't teach an old dog new tricks. But it turns out that you actually can. And studies I've presented in previous NASC webinars showed that a diet rich in antioxidants and mitochondrial nutrients like astaxanthin helped promote cognitive function in aging dogs. These days, we know that formation of new neurons, also known as neurogenesis, can happen in adulthood, and that exercise helps promote neurogenesis in the hippocampus, which is the brain's gateway to memory. In humans, the process has been described in 4 steps. First, a precursor cell phase where newborn neurons multiply. Second, an early phase where newborn neurons exit from the cell cycle. And third, a maturation phase that allows the axons, dendrites, and synapses to grow and form. Finally, and fourth, a late phase for fine-tuning and maturation of the neurons. This process is called adult hippocampal neurogenesis. So you may see the acronym AHN later. It's adult hippocampal neurogenesis. Since we know that exercise boosts neurogenesis in adult animals, this study looked at whether astaxanthin influenced this process. Exercising mice and sedentary mice supplementing with astaxanthin showed similar increases in proliferating brain cells and newborn neurons compared to sedentary mice. So we're looking at the light blue and dark blue bars compared to this cyan bar here. When exercise was combined with astaxanthin, shown in maroon, there was a synergistic effect on brain cell proliferation and an additive effect on new neuron formation compared to sedentary mice. So we're looking at proliferating brain cells in the left graph and newborn or neurogenous newborn neurons on the right here. This suggests that astaxanthin, together with exercise, can boost the effect of exercise on brain health. Furthermore, astaxanthin, even by itself, had a positive effect on brain cell activity and neuron formation, as you can see here in the dark blue bars. To examine the effect of this brain cell activity and neuron formation on cognitive performance, the study looked at a swim test called the Morris Water Maze. This test uses a platform that's hidden just under the surface of a cloudy swimming pool. And the mouse is released into the pool and must swim to find the platform. As the mouse learns to navigate the pool, it takes less time for the mouse to find the platform, and the mouse tends to spend more time in the quadrant closest to the platform compared to other parts of the pool. And this is a way of testing learning and memory. In this study, mice that combined both exercise and astaxanthin supplementation spent 25% more time in the correct quadrant of the pool. This suggests that the mouse was taking a less random path to the platform and actually remembered where the platform was. And it suggests that astaxanthin, together with exercise, helped support learning and memory in these mice, possibly as a result of increased neurogenesis in the hippocampus of these mice, as we saw in the earlier slide. So by supporting mobility in aging dogs with astaxanthin, we may also help support the positive effect of exercise on brain health, with potentially added benefits from astaxanthin supplementation on cognitive function as well. So natural astaxanthin has been shown to cross the blood-retinal barrier as well as the blood-brain barrier, which is why we can talk about cognitive benefits, but also eye benefits or eye health. So in this section, we'll examine the role of astaxanthin in maintaining healthy eyes. As dogs age, their eyes undergo changes such as a hardening and clouding of the lens due to accumulation of oxidative damage. This cloudy lens is called nuclear sclerosis. It is a normal consequence of aging that affects depth perception and near vision and causes a loss in visual acuity over time. But unlike cataracts, it doesn't lead to blindness. The prevalence of cloudy lens or cataracts is 50% in aging dogs over the age of 9 and 100% in dogs over the age of 13. This study examined whether an antioxidant formulation containing natural astaxanthin could slow the progression of refractive error or loss in visual acuity. The formulation contained lutein, zeaxanthin, beta-carotene, natural astaxanthin, vitamin C, and vitamin E. Dogs in the placebo group had their refractive error advance 4 times more in the course of 6 months compared to the antioxidant group. This suggests that antioxidant supplementation, including astaxanthin, may support visual acuity in aging dogs. Now, another common issue in aging dogs is dry eye. It is characterized by cloudy eyes, mucus discharge, redness around the sclera, swelling of the ocular surface and eyelids, as well as squinting or excessive blinking. In dogs ages 6 to 9, the prevalence of dry eye is 64%. This study in 50 dogs averaging 6.5 years of age looked at the effect of astaxanthin together with other herbal ingredients on dry eye. So this study combined several herbal ingredients, including aloe vera and astaxanthin, as well as Camellia sinensis and several other things that are, I will admit, somewhat difficult to pronounce. After 60 days of supplementation, mucus discharge decreased by 83% and dry eye-induced inflammation decreased by 72% compared to baseline only in the antioxidant group, but not in the control group. Importantly, tear production doubled in the antioxidant group compared to baseline, while no significant improvement was observed in the control group. So this suggests that natural astaxanthin may help support ocular hydration and comfort in aging dogs. Next, I'd like to look at some market trends for the use of astaxanthin in companion animal supplements. So, as we mentioned, geriatric dogs form a significant part of the population in the United States. 54% of US households own dogs 54% of USA households are dog owners, and geriatric animals account for half of the pet population in the US, as we mentioned earlier. So pet ownership has increased by over 250% in the first half of 2020. And people are looking for solutions to maintain their health, and they're paying more and more attention and taking greater care of their pets. So I think probably if you look at the supplement products that have been launching, still the majority of health benefits that are our focus are joint health, digestive health, immune health. These are big ones, but it's interesting to note that as much as 16% of new dog and cat supplement launches in the US in the last 5 years, according to Innova, had functional antioxidant claims. So the consumer is not unaware of the benefits of antioxidants, and we see them really prevalent, especially in immune function supplements and general health and wellness supplements. If we look at social media mentions about aging dogs, I use this word cloud from Falcon to help illustrate what people are thinking of and talking about when they're considering aging dogs and aging dog health and maintaining their health. So the size of the word represents a topic or word that is trending, and the color, the darker the color, the more total mentions there were of this particular term in social media. And so the search was based on aging dog health. So you see, of course, dog health products, all very large here in the center. Also, I highlighted in orange benefit platforms that were mentioned with frequency. And so you can see what consumers are thinking about or concerned with when they're considering their aging dogs, namely mobility, hip, joint, wellness, coat, various things like that. So mobility is a big one here. Also, In yellow, I looked at what forms or what types of products, what are the product attributes that people are considering when they're looking for solutions for their aging dogs. And we see supplements and food both feature prominently. And as sort of subcategories of those two, we see a lot of desire for natural ingredients like natural astaxanthin, as well as treats and chews, chews being big in the social media search shown here. Interestingly, if we cross-check now with product launches in the last 5 years in the US for supplements for dogs and cats based on Innova, we see that just like we saw in the social media word cloud, chews and chewables form the vast majority of new product launches in the supplement category for dogs and cats, over half. And the good news is that we've done the groundwork, and prototyping work of natural astaxanthin being used in various delivery forms. So it's a really flexible ingredient. We've successfully produced, and there are on the market in other parts of the world, tablets with astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is available in powder form as a topper. It is available as chews currently on the market. This is an example of an astaxanthin containing chew. And there are some interesting like nutritional bites or these types of flakes, if you will, that we've also prototyped containing astaxanthin that can be used as food toppers. Liquid formulations, I should say, are also available on the market, since these are, although they're not pictured here, similar to what you would see with salmon oil. So you may see a salmon oil fortified with astaxanthin or just astaxanthin by itself as a liquid topper for food. So with that, I'd like to return to this slide from the beginning to remind you, now that we're talking about formulation and different delivery forms with astaxanthin, what are the doses and benefits? So once again, we're looking at a range of 0.1 to 2.2 mg per kilogram natural astaxanthin, and these are the benefit platforms that we just covered: mitochondrial support, mobility, cardiovascular health, cognitive function, and eye health. Again, diet alone is really not enough. So the most ready source of natural astaxanthin in both the human and canine diet is wild salmon, but dogs simply cannot eat and do not have enough salmon, even in the commercial diet, nor could they consume this much salmon, even if you bought it for them. It's a lot. So clearly there's a need for supplementation here. Now, when we provide astaxanthin, AstaReal makes it from a plant-based, vegetarian-friendly source. So it does not come from salmon or other animal sources. In our diet, astaxanthin comes from red-colored seafoods like salmon, crustacean, prawns, and so on. But in the supplement form, it comes from microalgae. So I wanted to give you a glimpse behind the curtain at how AstaReal astaxanthin is made. So you'll see here, this is our manufacturing facility in Moses Lake, Washington, which is, of course, GMP, and our algae the oil is non-GMO, and it's also a USP, US Pharmacopoeia certified ingredient. And also, of course, we're a NASC preferred supplier. So the cultivation occurs in a fully enclosed indoor facility in Moses Lake, Washington. You see here the small cultures start out green. That's actually how they occur in nature. It's a green microalgae called Hematococcus pluvialis. It's a freshwater algae, and it occurs naturally in nature, where it produces astaxanthin in response to oxidative stress. And we just simulate those natural conditions indoors. And the reason we do it inside is because of consistency and helping to reduce the risk of contamination, both from chemical and biological contaminants. So the air inside the facility is HEPA filtered. And of course, all of our algal cultivation technicians are wearing personal protective equipment to protect the algae from any kind of source of contamination. So they're grown up from these small flasks into these very large stainless steel tanks. where the growth conditions are monitored and helped to stay consistent. They're very nurtured in this indoor environment. Everything is done quite precisely so that we get consistent cultures, consistent productivity each time. And this also allows us to harvest at a time when the algae are fully matured. They will break down that green chlorophyll and produce red astaxanthin instead. So once they're fully matured in what we call the red phase, where they've made the most amount of astaxanthin and there's no green chlorophyll left, that's when we harvest. And we do that because the chlorophyll is actually photosensitizing. It reacts with light and produces free radicals. So we don't want astaxanthin, consuming its antioxidant capacity on those free radicals being produced by chlorophyll. So this timing of the harvest is really important, and it's something that's unique. The consistency of it and the timing is unique to this kind of controlled indoor, fully enclosed cultivation environment that we have. Then the whole algae itself undergoes stringent quality control to meet our specifications for astaxanthin content, micro, metals, and other items as well. And then the algae undergo supercritical carbon dioxide extraction, which is a solvent-free method to extract the astaxanthin together with naturally occurring algal oils. And this is what the astaxanthin oil looks like. But of course, we provide astaxanthin in many different forms so that they can fit into all the deliveries that we looked at earlier that the consumer is looking for and that we see the supplement market launching. So we have the oil. We also, that can be put into soft gels or chews or gummies. I have seen some pet gummies on the market. We have lots of astaxanthin gummies available on the market for humans, none yet for pets. And there are also various astaxanthin powders that we make. Some are specifically made for compatibility with tablets. Others are water dispersible. There's also a liquid emulsion. Primarily, this one is used for ready-to-drink beverages. But for the liquid, for the topper, you may wish to use the oil. Also, the whole algae is one of the powders that's primarily used in pet supplements, pet chews in particular. So that's something to consider. And I encourage you to reach out to ask any questions about how you might use astaxanthin in your particular formulation or delivery format. AstaReal has over 30 years of experience, more than 35 now, with an R&D department and lots of prototyping experience. So we probably have tried it and can help you develop what you're looking for. And if not, we really like to partner with our customers to help find solutions and really help bring innovations to the market that contain astaxanthin and that are science-based, of course. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and I'll take any questions at this time. Again, here are my details, email address, and please feel free to check out the AstaReal USA website for more information on our products, benefit platforms, and events coming up, such as the NASC conference, where I'll be talking about astaxanthin for horses and muscle recovery. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Karen. I thought that Bill was going to pop in with questions. I wonder if maybe he's on mute at the moment.
Oh, yeah, he is muted, actually.
Bill
Sorry
Barker,
about that, Karen. I was muted. I was.
Classic teleconference behavior.
So
you're not the first, and you won't be the last.
One question that did come up was astaxanthin derived from algae. Is that bioequivalent to astaxanthin derived that someone would derive from directly from salmon?
Awesome question. So yes, it is bioequivalent to astaxanthin derived from wild salmon that eat natural astaxanthin. So basically, we're just cutting out the middleman, because what happens is the astaxanthin in salmon comes from algae. It goes up the food chain. So you have things like krill and small crustaceans that feed on algae that produce astaxanthin, and then the salmon feed on those. So yeah, it is equivalent. And a little bit more detail on that. You'll find the stereoisomer if you really want to dig in. It's 3S, 3' S stereoisomer that's made by this algae, which is the same as what we find in wild salmon. And also it is esterified, which means it has some fatty acids attached to it. That helps with emulsification in the gut. So I can go into more detail if needed. Feel free to email me, but the short answer is yes.
Fantastic. And then another question came in talking about staining. Is astaxanthin, especially in that powdered form, is that going to be staining, as a topper, is that going to be staining to surfaces, carpets and the like?
Right. Yeah, good question. So astaxanthin is a red pigment. So we haven't seen, I will say, any issues with chews, no staining or problems there. And I personally have not tried the toppers that are available on the market with my dogs. I also, like most consumers, I guess, prefer chews. But yes, it does have a red pigment. So if you have a red liquid astaxanthin, oil or liquid, it will stain. But what I will say is that it can be removed with detergent. And if you leave it in the sunlight for a couple of days, it will completely bleach out. So if it's red, you know it's working. And if it becomes photo-oxidized, which it does over time, it's sensitive to oxygen and direct sunlight, then the stain will be removed. So yeah, something to consider for sure.
Is there another question? Is there such a thing as an overexposure to astaxanthin, whether that be in companion animals or humans?
Great question. So I will tell you that we do have a safety study in dogs that showed no adverse events, and in humans. So in humans, the dose, the maximum based on the NDIN is 12 milligrams a day. In human safety studies, there are over 40 of them, have been conducted up to 45 milligrams a day with no adverse events, except that if you are not able to absorb all of the astaxanthin, because it is fat soluble, and you do have to kind of prime the gut when you're taking a small dose in the oil form, like a soft gel, which was what was used in those human clinical studies. In that case, if it's too much and the person doesn't absorb it effectively, it gets eliminated and gives your stool a surprising color. But that's about the only issue, and that was not observed in dogs. And interestingly, there's a patent in dogs that shows astaxanthin actually deodorized dog stool, interestingly, because it helped to slow oxidation and of the oils in the stool, and that's what makes it smelly. So that's fun fact.
Another question, any particular ingredients that should be avoided in soft chew formulations when using astaxanthin?
Not that I am aware of. So there are ingredients that you can add or include to help support the shelf life of astaxanthin, such as a secondary antioxidant system that includes vitamin C and vitamin E. And we see people doing that often. But no, I haven't heard of any particular ingredient that would be detrimental necessarily to astaxanthin, although you would want to consider maybe anything that would be potentially packaging, I would say, is more important than the ingredients in there. So if it's something that's extremely acidic and it's exposed, the packaging exposes it to direct sunlight, those two stressors together might compound or accelerate a degradation of astaxanthin. But other than that, no, there's no, I think if the question is about safety concerns or ingredients that should not be combined with astaxanthin in dogs. I'm not aware of any, but just in terms of formulation for optimizing astaxanthin stability, there are certainly some tips and tricks for things to add that will help support astaxanthin stability, and packaging is primarily important. So anything that minimizes exposure to oxygen and direct sunlight will do best.
A big thank you to AstaReal for sharing the presentation with us. And again, today's webinar will be archived on NASC's website, and you should be able to view both the deck and the video by visiting www.nasc.cc/webinars. And please feel free to share this presentation with anyone within or outside of your organization that you think would benefit from the presentation. Again, Karen, thank you so much. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you to AstaReal for supporting NASC and providing us with some excellent content. Thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you. And I look forward to seeing hopefully many of you at the NASC conference.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen. Bye.